everybody. We're just getting a little pre-show fun started. Oh, no, it's not what I wanted. There we go. No, I want... Crap. Okay, I think I fixed it so that I'm live. Otherwise, there was going to be a massive delay on my end, and that would piss me off. Welcome, yo, Geek News.
Welcome.
And by hip-hop roots, I mean I have none. All right, welcome to the pre-show, everybody. What was that?
What was that? The hip-hop roots thing about...
Well, did you see how I spelled the opening thing on the chat? I usually do like a welcome to Geek News. I put in welcome, yo, Geek News.
Oh, okay.
So like I said, I'm apparently living out my hip-hop roots. Because I totally have them. Don't I look like it?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. So, there is going to be something added to the agenda, but only if we don't have enough time, or only if we have enough time for it. Which is basically we're starting to get the 3 questions, so we'll start taking care of those. Mostly those will be next week, though. So be prepared for that, like stuff you're excited for, stuff you're dreading, stuff you think like the big 3 need to do to fix the problems they're having.
Show me something besides another boring, bland first-person shooter.
Well, they've done plenty of that this year. I mean, check out my Drac tries. I found the games. They exist. And they are fun. I mean, I found things like Skylar and Plux and Rhyme and Candleman. What are some of the other ones? Snake Pass.
I'm not denying they exist. I'm just saying one of the reasons I'm not really interested in E3 all that much now is just it's the same old 4 type of games: sports, shooters, action games that I'll probably never play.
Nah, I'm going to agree with one of our listeners' theories, which is because we're not interested in the Oscars, you're not interested in E3.
Last time I got excited for E3 was when Nintendo was there with the whole thing with the Muppets and all, and the whole Wii U showcase, which got me really excited about the Wii U. And that was years ago.
Well, I was going to say the Muppets, they weren't there. Because that was a direct. But the Wii U showcase, yeah, they were there. Yeah, no, the Muppets thing was a Nintendo Direct at E3.
Then it was E3.
Yeah, I'm just saying they weren't there.
I'm not talking about the show floor. I'm not talking about the show floor. I'm talking about the conferences themselves.
Oh yeah. Wait, you're not excited to see Ubisoft and Aisha Tyler try to tell us all that she's a gamer after she just had her nails done?
Really not.
Or the fact that and actually this was a listener story, and sorry guys, I did not put it in the agenda, mainly because there's not a whole lot to it. Ubisoft changed their logo, but not really. Basically what they did was...
2 different shade of blue?
No. What they did was basically they took the color out of it. So now it's just a white outline that can go up on whatever background.
Well, that's kind of boring.
Yeah. I thought it was funny. I was like, this warrants our attention from Ubisoft. Not the fact that, we might actually have them doing another Assassin's Creed that might just suck like everything else. No, a logo change is what we needed. Let me see if I can find it. It's dumb. But yeah, sorry guys, I'm not going to do that story because there's just nothing there. It's a new Ubisoft logo that looks like the old one minus the color. So maybe what I'll do is I'll start covering all of the stuff that we can't really make work in the agenda in this pre-show. And you guys can appreciate it then. Here we go. So here is the new Ubisoft logo. And here is the old Ubisoft logo. Can you tell a difference?
Yeah, they did a Photoshop.
I was going to say they took off a Photoshop mask. That's what they did. They went into Photoshop, took off a mask. Okay.
Not even a mask. They went into Photoshop. They simply turned on the magic wand tool and erased the blue.
Yeah, pretty much. But hey, it's new. And we even have like a couple of some other people doing their work for them, which is basically showcasing a bunch of Ubisoft games. But of course, Alex, you're excited for the EA press conference where they can announce that yes, they have in fact 6 Star Wars games in development, but they don't have anything to show on them. I've already got people actually asking, when you send your thing to Alex after the EA conference, could you put it up on Facebook? To which my answer is, yeah, probably. I'll edit it, for taking out all my curse rants, but there's plenty to enjoy. No, we already have a couple of decent game announcements, but I've already heard from a lot of Square Enix fellow fanboys that are disappointed that Final Fantasy VII Remake and Kingdom Hearts 3 won't be there. In fact, we're probably not going to hear anything. Like if they're slated for the next 3 years, we're probably not going to see anything until the year before they release. Now, guys, before people jump down my throats, I know that means up to 3 years. It could easily come out a year later. But when Square Enix does stuff like that, there's a reason behind it. And I don't know if you guys have been noticing, but there's been in fact, we're going to cover it tonight, the Final Fantasy VII Remake debacles that have been happening. It tells me that Kingdom Hearts is also having a little bit of a struggle. So at that point, to think that they won't take all 3 years, I think is fairly optimistic. I think the reality of this is that they're going to get really close to that. So you probably won't get Kingdom Hearts until 2 years later.
I'm betting they're gonna overshoot it at this rate. Square in April 27. Just reading this in April 2017, Square Enix and it indicated that Kingdom Hearts 3 would not release any sooner than their 2018 fiscal year. So depending on when the fiscal year starts, is the big maybe.
But came later was their finances came out for shareholders. And Kingdom Hearts 3 and the Final Fantasy VII Remake were all labeled in the bracket of out in the next 3 years. So it's not 2018, it's more like 2020 now. Just 2018 is optimistic.
Yeah, that's why I said they're probably going to overshoot it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying they won't release. But when you say they won't release any sooner, then yeah, that means they don't have a finite release time or even a window at this point.
I think the most optimistic to look at for Square Enix, and look, I want this game to have as much love and attention as it can get. So the most optimistic would be take the entire 3 years, or at the very earliest, I see at the 2.5 mark, we start seeing stuff. But really, like, I'm gonna tell people to start getting used to this. I have a feeling that Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to get yet another delay, probably like to 2022, and most of that I'm going to credit to the Final Fantasy VII Remake and the fact that now they've gotten rid of CyberConnect 2. They're going to develop that internally, and they're also looking for developers. So I mean,
Connect 2 is involved?
Yeah, they were helping in the development process.
Oh, didn't know that actually.
Yeah, CyberConnect 2 does a lot of that. They help with a lot of the grunt work of development. They give you some spare developers to work with. Sometimes these people from CyberConnect then get hired to those companies, but they lease this out to be able to get it out faster. Problem is that it's costly to do that because they are basically leasing their developers to you. And Square Enix has said, we can't really afford it. Which tells me that a lot of their releases recently have not done as well as they had projected. So 15, World of Final Fantasy probably didn't do as well as they hoped. I would even dare say Kingdom Hearts 2.8 probably didn't do as good as they were hoping, and now we're probably not in good shape. So what I'm saying is that if the remake is already being pulled in internally, now there could be other reasons that happens. I know that, but this is the reason I'm thinking it is. They could, but with the fact that it got pulled in internally, the fact that they're now looking for new developers, which means they fired or other people have gone to other studios. I really do think Kingdom Hearts is also going to get the delay just as much as 7 Remake is. I've got a better idea. How about we get rid of the 7 Remake and actually move all the developers over to Kingdom Hearts 3, and then at least we can get one good game before 2020. Just saying. 80% of the people that I know of that wanted that game don't want it now because of all of the announcements for it. Like, oh, episodic? Ew.
They're really going episodic with it?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be episodic.
What's taking them so long?
I don't know. You tell me. Nomura's done. The funniest part about this is that Tetsuya Nomura immediately announced after 15 was released, he was going to finish up his duties to the 7 Remake, and then he would just oversee the project. And then he'd move on to Kingdom Hearts 3 to start constructing it. The last thing I'd heard is that he had moved on to Kingdom Hearts 3. So he is basically just the overseer. Well, it doesn't sound to me like he should have left because now they're having trouble. So that's what I'm saying, guys. Maybe it would have been a better idea to not do this 7 Remake. Or another good idea would have been to properly put your resources like from Hitman, from Just Cause into these bigger games. Let's see. You think it's because people see a lot of the same and don't buy the new games, or see the Kingdom Hearts remakes as a cash grab and didn't bite? Yeah, kind of. I mean, like, we did, but that's just because, well, my wife wanted it. So at that point, I can't talk her out of that stuff. Alex knows this. I can't talk her out of it. Once she wants it, she gets it. Like, she has every stinking Kingdom Hearts game she's ever bought. And so at that point, she has at least 2 remakes of 1 and 2. And she just keeps on getting that stuff. But yeah, it's the... I just don't think 2.8 or the 1.5, 2.5 PS4 release did that much. And it's because, unfortunately, gamers see through the bull crap. Like, oh, well, I already own these games. And maybe at that point, they already own the PS3 remake. So they're like, oh, well, there's really no difference here. So I will just go that route. And I think we're just waiting on Romney, and then we will get started. Let's see, what other stories didn't make it today that people wanted us to talk about? Oh, yes. Tom Holland wants Chris Pratt to be Sully. No, this did not make the list, and it's simply because it's a celebrity speculating on who should play his cohort in Uncharted. And frankly, I'm going to be honest here, people. No, Chris is too young. I mean, like, we're talking about Uncharted 3 Sully. So at that point, by the time he actually met Nathan, he was probably late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, but you're assuming they're actually bothering to follow that precise narrative.
I am.
I'm
hoping.
I don't think so. I think they're just. I think at this point they're just saying fuck it and rewriting the whole thing from the ground up in its own fashion, which is why they're casting Tom Holland. Besides the fact that, oh hey, it's Sony, and hey, he's in our Spider-Man movies. It's a bankable name, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm being way too optimistic in this one, but I'm gonna stick to my guns here. Nothing against Chris Pratt. I like Chris Pratt. I've praised him many times on the channel for Jurassic World, Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm trying to think if there's any other movies that we've seen with him in it.
Lego movie.
Who did he play? I can't remember.
Emmett Brickhouse.
Oh, he played the main character? Okay. Yeah, okay. Then we praised him there probably. But we probably didn't know who it was at the time, knowing our luck.
Yeah, because that would have been right before Guardians, so we wouldn't have known the name. We've sung his praises numerous times. I just don't think he's the right pick for Sully. I really would want somebody like, if we're going for Tom Holland's like late teens, early 20s, I want to say, because that's usually how it goes for actors. Like if you're playing a high school kid, you're probably in your 20s. That's usually how it goes. Let's just go off the assumption that Tom Holland is playing a 14, 15-year-old Nathan Drake. Then at that point, it would be safe to say that Sully would be like mid to late 30s, maybe even his 40s. I don't know. Yes, Jiro, we are covering that story. So no, we're not covering it right now. It actually made the agenda. So the other thing that we need to cover that was not in the agenda, which is this literally got brought up by listeners like right at the 11th hour. So Top Gun 2 has a title. And Tom Cruise made it very clear to say that they will not degrade their title by putting a 2 in it. And so now the title will be Top Gun Maverick. My response is cue up.
Go ahead.
Just cue up James Rolfe's chronologically confused from James Rolfe.
Exactly. No, my joke was actually going to be, so does that mean that John McCain's officially going to be in the movie? Because if I have to hear that he's a Maverick of the Senate one more time, I might actually have my head explode.
I wish a Maverick of the Senate, my French. That's the way it works. Hi there, I'm John McCain. I am a Maverick of the Senate. I've been told that numerous times, my French. Even my running partner, Sarah Palin, who you can agree or disagree with, was also a Maverick in the state of Alaska. That's the way it goes.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if it's going to be Top Gun Maverick, then either I want a cameo, or I want Saturday Night Live to pull their heads out of their butts and actually bring their John McCain guy back so that they can make fun of this title.
So who did play? I'm now wondering who actually did. I'm just wondering who actually did play John McCain in SNL.
Was it Tina Fey who did Sarah Palin? Yeah, because it was controversial. So, yeah, I don't know who did it. Oh, no, Jiro, they did way more of the Maverick thing than they did of the war captive. And I mean, depending on who you watched, but yeah, there's a bar right there. We got Maverick of the Senate who knows how many times, and every time they said Maverick, I went, "Oh, you mean he'll sleep with the other party until he gives away the kitchen sink?" So let's see. So yes, we have Top Gun Maverick. I'm just laughing at the title. I'm going to see it, Alex. You know I will. You'll probably go with me. Oh yeah, and Val Kilmer is actually up for going into Top Gun 2.
Again, I'm still not believing it's happening until they're officially
until there's a trailer.
Shooting.
It's not real.
Yeah,
let's go with the internet rules of Pixar. It didn't happen. Trailer or it's not happening.
Yeah, it's just I have a reason to be skeptical because I've been seeing the news of Top Gun 2 forever. It's been in development hell for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frankly, I thought the project was probably dead after Tony Scott killed himself.
Okay, honestly, because we reported on this in Radio SLCC when it first came up. Honestly, I did not think I was going to hear about it 4 or 5 years later. I brought it up to Romney as a joke to see if we could get another reaction from him, and it didn't happen. But now I might do that reaction. Oh, yes, and then the other one was M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong has lost the rights of Tales from the Crypt, so the reboot that he was working on has been shelved due to rights issues. My first opinion on the matter is he had the rights to Tales of the Crypt. I thought that was done. Let me see who's actually claiming the due to rights issues, though the network may revisit the project in the future. TNT and TBS president Kevin Riley confirmed that because of a very complicated underlying rights structure, Shyamalan's reboot is no longer in development. That one got really caught up in a complete legal mess, unfortunately, with a very complicated underlying rights structure. We lost so much time. Look, I'm not waiting around 4 years for this thing. So, yeah, it looks like they didn't have the proper rights. They didn't do the proper paperwork and red tape. And so, unfortunately, you're not getting a reboot of Tales from the Crypt. Let's see. Already the chat is kind of catching up. Let's see. Top Gun Maverick probably end up more like Iron Eagle and Top Gun. I was actually going to say it wouldn't have been better if it actually ended up like crap. What's the I want to say Top Ace, but that's not what it was called. The spoof movie that came out that starred Charlie Sheen.
Oh,
Hot Shots.
I want to say Hot Shots. There we go.
So it's probably going to end up more like Hot Shots. So there you go. Alternative titles: Top Gun: Iceman Returns. Top Gun: Will he be his wingman anytime? Or no, Top Gun: The Wingman Issue. Let's see. None of the current U.S. Navy planes are as cool as the F-14 was. Yeah, no, like.
I don't even know what is in the Navy arsenal anymore.
The Raptor would be the most up to speed one, I think. The F-20 Raptor. I've actually seen documentaries on the inner workings of the Raptor, and having my dad, who was an engineer, like telling me why the specs were really, really cool, made it awesome. But yeah, the Tomcat was the shit back in the day. Noirlax, do you not know what Hot Shots is? I think I think he was just guessing. He was like throwing out that answer when we were trying to figure it out. Okay, yeah, it was Hot Shots. For our Top Gun spoof. Oh, what was it? I want to say Mel Blanc, but that's not right. Was it Spaceballs guy who did it?
Oh, Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks. Was it Mel Brooks that did Hot Shots? I don't think it was.
I don't think so. Let me find out who actually did Hot Shots.
Because see, Mel Brooks has got
Jim Abrams.
Who?
It's Jim Abrams.
Jim Abrams. Okay. Because Mel Brooks has got Spaceballs. He's got Dracula Didn't Loving It. Robin Hood Men in Tights. He's got one more.
The Producers, Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles. That's the one I was thinking of.
I'm guessing you're talking about Mel Brooks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we originally are talking about Top Gun Maverick. Yes, that's the title. So right now we're coming up with better titles.
Oh shit!
It's just my brain just went to like Top Gun Maverick. So Tom Cruise working at a gas station.
Oh, I didn't even think about that one. That would have been great. No, the first thing I went to was, so there's going to be a John McCain cameo.
Because she was a maverick of the Senate, my French.
I think you're thinking of Sarah Palin.
No, he was the one that was being advertised as a maverick of the Senate. Sarah Palin was the maverick out in Alaska, my French.
Yeah. No, seriously, this was the advertising point. They were both mavericks. So at that point, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
There either needs to be a John McCain cameo in the movie, or SNL needs to pull their heads out of their butts and bring back Tina Fey and whoever played John McCain to do a cameo. And
Yeah,
I'm talking in flight suit.
Yeah, I'm talking. I don't think they ever had like a consistent person who did John McCain, mainly because John McCain didn't give them nearly as much material as Sarah Palin.
No, because it was temporary because of the debates and all that stuff. Kind of like with Will Ferrell and George Bush. Because from what I hear, he actually didn't like doing the George Bush. And he got sick and tired of people asking him to do it. So at that point, their John McCain was temporary. But considering that this is where they're going, I want a cameo just so we can have Maverick said a couple hundred more times said in TV.
Yeah. Honestly, Dana Carvey's impression of Bush is better.
Or Mel Gibson as a Maverick cameo. Nice. Although I do like your alternative title, Iceman Returns. Top Gun, the Wingman issue. And in the trailer, it actually has to say, "Will he be his wingman anytime? You decide."
Or alternately, it's like Top Gun, the Iceman cannot cometh.
Or Top Gun, the Iceman cannot fitteth. Look, I love Val Kilmer, okay? He's got some good roles as far as I'm concerned, but have you seen him recently?
Yeah.
There's no way he can come back as Iceman.
Yeah, I think the last thing I saw him doing was like a Ten Commandments musical, I think, was like the last major thing I saw him in.
The last thing that I literally saw him in was, like, film-wise, was probably I want to say Batman Forever. I don't think he's done, like, any other major movies that I've seen since then. I mean, I've gone into his backlog. Finally, like, people think I saw this as a kid. I didn't. I finally saw Real Genius, and then I also saw The Saint, which I love. I actually think he's really good in. Broke Maverick Mountain. Ouch. Okay. All right. I think we're good. Now all I'm hearing is that music in my head, and Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise in my brain. Can't get it out. Thanks, Shiro. Can't get it out. All right. Let's go ahead and get things started. So that's pretty much the covering of the stories that unfortunately we weren't able to do. So sorry, guys. Our agenda just kind of got full. That and there isn't too much to talk about there. In fact, here we go. Lightning round for Romney. He could give us his opinions before we start. Ubisoft changing their logo to basically taking out a Photoshop mask and having it clear.
Meh.
Okay, Top Gun 2. Top Gun Maverick. Meh. And M. Night Shyamalan apparently had the rights to Tales from the Crypt, but he didn't because now that reboot is on the shelf.
Meh.
There you go.
Eh.
Eh.
Consensus says, eh.
Eh. I'm used to meh. I had to deal with Chris for my life, so you know.
Oh yeah, just with all those news, it's just meh.
Okay, so before we get started, chat and panelists, how does my audio sound? Because I had some audio hiccups last time.
So far you're coming in clear on my end.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that what happened was my Hangouts was actually running XSplit instead of running my mic directly, and it actually turned on the camera's mic. So I was having some double speak, is my guess is what happening. That's why we had some feedback issues. So I don't know that, but we'll try that out tonight and see if that actually fixed the issue. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to use this mic anymore, and that would be a sad thought, wouldn't it? Let's see. Okay, so let me know when you guys are good to go. And
Sound speed.
Mhm.
there we go. Get that all up, and here we go. Okay, 3, 2, 1. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the week's events in Geek. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, a.k.a. Drac. I hope everybody has had an awesome week so far. For me, it's been kind of weird because my house is actually doing a little bit of a transition. My wife, for about a year now, has been working graveyard shifts, and they now moved her over to mornings, so we actually halfway into the week, we're used to our usual schedule, and then we transitioned into mornings. And so if I seem a little tired, a little tipsy and all that, it's just because we're getting used to this new schedule. But I hope everybody else is having an awesome week. And thankfully, this didn't affect my actual schedule because you guys got all the videos you wanted, including, for those who are asking, the latest Why We Geek is up. So you guys can check that out. It's for geeky couples. But of course, I'm not alone on this podcast. I do actually talk with other geeks, in case people are wondering. And of course, I'm being joined by my panel of usual fellow YouTubers, fellow critics, fellow awesome guys in general. Let's go ahead and start things off with Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, of From the Shelf, Romney's Reviews. Romney, what's up, my friend?
You know, what people may not realize is that Adam is secretly a really talented ventriloquist. I mean, that's how he's able to imitate each of our voices. And you want to know the sad part is? Anyone listening to this after the fact won't know if I'm wrong or right.
They actually won't, but
It's
the
true.
sad part is I won't get paid for my extracurricular talent.
Yeah, just had to throw in that joke.
Somebody put in the lonely troll face. Just
The forever alone face.
yeah, it's the forever alone face. There you go.
Yeah, but to answer the question, it's been an okay week. Ran into some behind-the-scenes snags regarding an episode of From the Shelf that I may have to, for lack of a better expression, put on the shelf for now until I can get some issues sorted out. So what I've been doing in the interim is getting back into writing. And now's the time that my cat decides to freak out.
I was actually going to point out that Romney's had a recent purchase also this week that is a little freaky for me because it's very similar to what I have. In fact, it's very similar. So I thought he was going for that, but no.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. Mainly because it's weird because I'm so used to when we used to do this on Saturdays and having that be the end of the week. But yeah, my days of relying on public transit have officially come to an end since I did finally acquire a new car.
And by acquire a new car,
Nice.
he literally got the same make, model, and year and color as mine. So it's like, wow, that looks really familiar. And just for the heck of it, I sent a message over to Romney on Facebook. I'm like, what's the year of that? He's like, it's this year. And I'm like, you're kidding. That is exactly my year. That is exactly my make. Romney's trying to copy me.
Well, or alternately, what would have been weirder is if you had sold yours and somehow it ended up at the dealership I bought mine from.
You know what? That would have been awesome, actually.
Yeah, it would have been weird. It would have just been like it made its way back to you like old Lassie.
Well, I was actually going to say, like, at least you got it from a reliable source, and at least I know it's in good hands.
Yeah,
So there you go.
yeah. But yeah, the new car, still getting used to it, but at least it's nice not to have to get up at the crack of dawn to catch the bus anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And also we're being joined by the Shadow Blazer himself, who has humbly stepped out of the shadows just to meet with us in all of his hipster glory. Alex, how are you doing tonight?
Still say you're more the hipster than I am these days, but my week has been, I guess, pretty average to say the least. Just the usual ups and downs, going to work, recording with you. And yeah, that's really it. Pretty average, pretty typical week for me.
And that's actually affected us because now, because of the transition and schedule, one day that like was perfect because you always get it off. Now we can't do because now my wife works on it, and now we have to go back to an unpredictable schedule. So sad face. And as far as the hipster issue is concerned, I've got a perfect solution for this, and maybe the chat will agree because we have a live chat tonight, by the way. One of these days, you and me are just going to come on. We're both going to have plaid shirts and fedoras. Like, we're going to find some fedoras at like Target, and we're just going to let people make the decision. Who is the hipster?
All right.
For the record, the hat that everyone keeps calling a fedora is not a fedora. It's a trilby.
Okay,
Fedoras
sorry.
have a much wider brim. I'm sorry. It's just, I keep seeing everyone's like, oh yeah, fedoras. Those are trilbies. Those are trilbies.
The problem is that I only started calling the actual hat fedora like at 18. The rest of the time I called it the Indiana Jones hat. So
Well, yeah, the thing is, because the Indiana Jones hat is a fedora. It has a wider brim.
Yeah.
But the hats you see at Walmart and Target, those are trilbies. Big difference.
Yeah, the only hat that I actually knew the name was bowler hats. And it was only because I was in a play where I had to wear a bowler hat.
Yeah, I used to have a bucket bowler hat for a while.
I did. I was an accomplished British gentleman because I wore a bowler hat. All right, so you guys didn't come here for hat discussion. No.
Well,
You guys.
I mean,
didn't come here at all.
unless we have to cover like Team Fortress 2, maybe.
Well, we might have to at some point. I know a lot of people have been asking, like, do you play Team Fortress 2? Not as much as I'd like. But then again, like 80% of the games that I would like to play, I'm probably not playing. So we're good there. But yes, this is Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk about the week's events in Geek. So we do actually have some stories to get to. Let's go ahead and get to the first one tonight, which is kind of a bittersweet one. I don't want to say it's too much. I actually thought this had happened already, but we can officially confirm that the PlayStation 3 has ceased production. This actually comes to us via Gematsu. I think I'm saying that right, aren't I?
I think so, yeah.
Gematsu. They actually reported that the official PlayStation website page for the 500 gigabyte version, the most recent one, the one that gets sold in a lot of Best Buys now, the only model that actually was currently in production in Japan has listed its shipments now as ended. So unfortunately, you are not able to purchase the PlayStation 3. Now, I actually tried to look around to see, because I know that obviously the Wii's production has ended. It ended shortly after the Wii U. The only thing I wasn't able to confirm is whether or not the Xbox 360 had ended its production. I'm going to go off the assumption that it has, because at this point we now have Xbox moving towards Xbox One and Scorpio and all that stuff. But this is kind of bittersweet. This is basically, at least I'm going to call it here, unless somebody can actually figure out if the 360 is still made in factory still. This is the end of the 7th generation of consoles. May she rest in peace. Well, not really. I mean, people will still have their PS3s. It's just you can't buy a new one at this point.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you'd even be able to buy a new one prior to this announcement, because I had to get mine used. And luckily, I was able to modify it myself. I went from 500 gigs to a terabyte hard drive, which took a while, but I did it.
Yeah, but I mean, Jiminy Christmas. Like, I know all of us on the panel have a PS3. I'm just not sure. Like, I know mine gets a lot of mileage, mainly because of Direct and Shadow, my own recordings, and also I still have a lot of games on my PS3 that I like to play. Alex, do you still use yours?
Oh yeah, I still use mine. Mine's still my primary Blu-ray player, as well as I play games on it. So yeah, my PS3 gets plenty of use.
Exactly. And Romney, I know, uses his quite a bit because he's talked about playing things like Guilty Gear, stuff like that. So
then it's also how I capture footage from Blu-rays for some of my videos, is that I hook up my Rocket to my PS3, put in the Blu-ray to capture all the footage. Yeah, that way. I mean, that's what I did for the episode talking about Poltergeist, is that I used my PS3 to capture footage from the 2 versions of Poltergeist. That's also how I got some footage for the Genshiken Abridged, some of the Lodos scenes we didn't have access to. That's how I got it as well.
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of a bittersweet day. The 7th generation has officially ended. I mean, Nintendo's the only one that's weird because technically, I guess they're on their 9th generation of consoles. with the Switch, but then there are some people who say that like Wii U Switch should just be in this generation, in the 8th generation period. But we have this official milestone behind us. I'm actually kind of nostalgic ever since I saw the story come up via a listener. It's like, wow, holy crap. Because here's the thing, the 7th generation of consoles is probably the longest running generation. It lasted for a good 7 or 8 years, I want to say. Oh, actually for probably a good 10 years, because PS3, no, in 360's case, it was more than that. It was probably 12 years. But PS3 and Wii, they were 2007 releases, I believe. No, 2006. So yeah, we're talking 10 plus years in one console generation. So with that, the listener that also gave us this story actually did have a discussion topic, and I figure that can kind of be the brunt of this discussion, because I have a feeling if we go into our opinions, a lot of us are actually going to say like it's bittersweet. The PS3 is done. Now Sony will make a full-on pitch for everybody to upgrade to PS4, while their remaining PS3s sell out at Best Buys and whatnot. But the discussion that got brought up was of the 7th generation of consoles. Now, the way he counts it is PS3, Xbox 360, Wii, and Wii U.
Except Wii U is 8th gen.
The problem is like
let's just go with a compromise. Wii U is 7.5.
7.5 roughly. That's the weird part. Like Wii U is somewhere in between, because again, like if you count it, then well, the Switch would be the start of the 9th generation of consoles. So at that point, it's like, oh, so do we count PS4 Pro and Scorpio as 9th?
Well, thing is,
I wouldn't.
Yeah, keep in mind,
Just
Nintendo.
Because.
Go ahead,
Go
Alex.
ahead, Romney.
Well,
Okay,
what I was about to say is, oh, sorry, go ahead, Alex.
All right,
We'll
all
get
right,
to
I'll
this
go ahead.
eventually.
Please,
Alex.
we can't take a pick. All right, so I mean, just by that logic, because if the Wii U was just an extension of the Wii, like so many people thought it was, then I could say, sure, call it part of the previous generation, but the Wii is its own dedicated console, where the PS4 Pro and the Xbox Scorpio are just extensions of their current iterations. That's why I think it's more prudent to call the Wii U 8th gen, and the Switch is its whole other category. It's kind of an in-between. It's kind of an in-between. It's kind of its own thing.
Yeah, and the point I was going to make is that a lot of people tend to forget that the Wii had a similar release strategy, where it was also released kind of in between generations when the Xbox and PlayStation 2 were still kind of in their prime. They came out with the Wii, which then started mopping the floor with the other consoles, and thus and so that's why Nintendo's scheduling has always been kind of wonky.
Yeah, and the other problem too is that like when people actually count generations, this doesn't help either, is the way that people count the generations. Because I've talked to people who don't even consider the Wii its own generation, because to him it's GameCube 0.5. It's literally just GameCube graphics, pretty much a GameCube added with motion controls. So at that point, can you really call it the next gen console? So I call it that just because it came out and it's the 7th generation. But the way that I look at it is that any console that comes out is a generation of consoles. So at that point, Wii U would, even though it is Wii 0.5, look, Alex, I'm not disagreeing with you. In a lot of cases, that's what it is. That would be the 8th because it was its own separate console, and then the 9th generation would be Nintendo Switch. But I can kind of see where a lot of analysts are also saying that, no, we basically count Wii U/Switch as the 8th generation kind of thing. So at that point, like back into the discussion here, which one, so of the 7th generation of consoles, which one did you actually spend the most time on? Which one got the most games? Which one got... The only thing that we're ruling out here is media use, because the bottom line is that whatever console you had, it was probably also being used as a DVD player, as a way to stream Netflix and all that stuff. But we're talking actual game time. You spent the most time on that console. And for me, it's a no-brainer. I got to say PS3. I literally looked back the last week and kind of clocked my overall time. And I've spent more time on the PS3 than either one of the other two competing. Like maybe a very far second would be the Wii, and then 360 would be a distant third. But I've spent a lot of time and hours on PS3. It's basically been like the default. If I'm going to go traveling, that's the console I'm bringing. So at this point, that's probably the one I spent the most time on, and probably adds to the whole bittersweet feeling because it's like, holy crap, this actually is kind of done. Let's go ahead and start things off with the Shadow Blazer, because the Shadow Blazer did have a Wii. You didn't have it. Well, you kind of had a 360.
Not exactly.
Kind of had a 360, but
not exactly. I didn't even technically have a Wii either, because the Wii was my older sister's. And, of course, when that came out, she, of course, was still living here at home, so I got to play it when she wasn't playing it. So that was pretty much it. But I gotta say, in terms of which console I essentially have the most time with, I probably would just say the PS3, because it's the only one I physically have and possess, where the Wii has always been something I could borrow when I need it and when I want it. The PS3 is something I actually have. I own it, therefore, and I have a lot more downloaded games on it. I probably bought a couple of games here and there for it as well, and I'd say that's the one I probably have the most investment in.
Well, and also the added bonus that you have is that, most PS3 owners, especially if they're hardcore like me, have probably owned at least one. For me, we had a problem with the PS3 that I owned, and so unfortunately I had to upgrade to the 500 gig model. You, I think, have still kept your PS3. The one. You have not fixed it. You've not done any repairs. You haven't replaced it. You're still on the same one that you've owned.
Yep, it still works like a charm, and I've never had any real problems or issues with it that I've ever needed to repair or replace.
Which is funny because you and I actually had the same version. It was the arcade version that came out that was less. So that at that point you didn't have to get the $600 version, the only one that had backwards compatibility for a while there. Which I actually found out later apparently is the most bug prone and the most repair prone console that ever came out. And
that's the one that kept catching fire.
What was that?
I'm saying that that early model was also prone to catching on fire.
Oh yeah. The $600 one, yeah. So at that point, those are the ones that actually were repair prone, and Alex has kept his version for this long, 10 plus years. Not because you got it 2 years later. So yeah, you're probably coming up on 10 years, but you're not there yet. Romney, what about you?
Well, speaking honestly, just looking back at the kind of games I played during the majority of the 7th generation, keep in mind, when it came to that particular generation, a lot of the consoles that my family got, we were kind of late to the party. I mean, we were very much Nintendo fans, do or die for a while. But then, during what I like to call the Christmas where nobody looked good, my dad decided to get us an Xbox 360 when we all wanted to Wii. Again, this was the Christmas where nobody came out looking good at all. It was... I mean, if you want definition of bad Christmas where everyone is acting like a brat, that would be the year. I myself was part of that problem. And so
somebody poured brat juice in the eggnog that year.
Yeah, pretty much. Except it was kind of drawn down the middle. My older brother vehemently defended the 360 because there were a lot of games he wanted to get on it. And we were thinking, oh, should we take it back to try to get the one we want? And he went no. And he literally, I find this one, he literally had us go to GameStop, and he's like, okay, if you guys can't find at least one game you'll play, then we'll take it back. And so my younger brother got Sonic 06, unfortunately.
Oh.
And
because everybody did.
And oddly enough, we both got Sega titles. My younger brother got Sonic 06, I got Phantasy Star Universe. And so that was the first 360 game. I gave up after a while just because I thought the story was kind of dumb.
Yeah, it was really lacking.
Most of the generation, I only had the 360, but I didn't really play it that often. I think the only games I really played on it were Soul Calibur 4 and Lost Odyssey. But if you wanted to look in terms of which 7th generation console got the most playtime, over the course of that entire generation, and I'm surprised the listener didn't include this in his question, was the DS. I literally still have my mountain of DS games because my older brother,
my applause to Romney for finding the loophole in the discussion topic. Now, listeners, you need to know he will find them and he will exploit them.
Well, yeah, because I'm just talking that particular gap of time. Because my older brother, my younger brother, they were more into the shooters. They were more into the more actiony games and the grindy sort of games. I mean, my older brother red-ringed our original Xbox because he kept playing Assassin's Creed, literally for hours and hours and hours on end until the Xbox finally crapped out of the heat. He even tried to fix it himself at one point. That's how desperate he was to keep the thing going. Literally took it apart, tried soldering the connection himself, but still couldn't keep it going. So much so that literally 1 year, and it was on a time when I had a job and could support it, where I literally bought a refurbished it was a refurbished model. I got it for my older and younger brother. And then the following year, I then got them the S series because I was being Mr. Generous when I really shouldn't have been because I couldn't afford it. And so it's just they were the ones who played the 360 more often. I didn't get the PS3 until last year, so can't really count that. But of all the games in that generation that I would say defined my high school experience as a gamer was the DS. I mean, I was into the Castlevania series. That was the height of my Final Fantasy phase. I'm looking at the shelf. I mean, stuff like Resident Evil, Deadly Silence, Rune Factory, Rhythm Heaven, Star Fox Command, which I feel is kind of underrated and gets too much flack from the fan base. Of all the 7 generations, that is the console that I clocked in the most hours on playing. Even when I was at home, I'd be sitting in my room playing whether it was the newest Phoenix Wright or Apollo Justice or the legendary Starfy or whatever random games I imported from Japan like Owendon or the Kamen Rider games. That is the console. Yeah, well, keep in mind, Professor Layton, I'm actually just barely getting into the series.
Oh, okay.
So the major series I followed back then were Phoenix Wright, Castlevania, Final Fantasy, and just random first-party stuff Nintendo would put out, like the legendary Starfy, Star Fox Command, and the Zelda Spirit Tracks. I also was into Trauma Center, Time Hollow, The World Ends With You. I bought a lot of the experimental games for that console. My favorites would be Elite Beat Agents and Owendon. But point being, that is the console from that generation that I played the most.
All right, so there you go. The loophole there is that instead of spending it on a console, he actually spent a lot more time on a handheld. And that actually kind of makes sense, to be honest. The other thing, too, that I also want to point out is, I said that the PS3 was the one I spent the most time on. It wasn't the one I owned the longest. I still have my Nintendo Wii from when that came out. And no, it's not like a release date Wii. But I still have that, and I played the PS3 more than the Wii. I didn't get access to a 360 until much, much, much later. The funniest thing is I gained access to Alex's 360, and I probably played it more than you and your sister combined. So, but again, these were later into the life cycle. Now, the other added part of this discussion that I do want to get into is because one of the things that the 7th generation is known for is online service. That's when that actually officially started. Now, a lot of people might say, no, 6th generation, not really. You got the earliest forms of Xbox Live, but we're talking levels and stuff like that. Or online support for a game. This was the one where we actually got things like Virtual Console. We got the PlayStation Network. We got Xbox Live with its many tiers. And I love how the concept of fictional points became kind of our dilemma throughout most of the 7th generation of consoles until that was promptly fixed. Of the 3 systems that we got, and what they're basically counting is, we're going to call it Wii system because it wasn't Nintendo Network. It was very early, bare bones kind of system. Mm-hmm. PlayStation Network and Xbox Live. And by Xbox Live, I mean the tiered version where if you even wanted to get all of the games that were being offered, you had to be gold. A lot of people I knew just went into the bare bones service because that gave them access to the COD Battlegrounds and things like that. But which one do you actually think was designed and utilized by you the most? And this is actually where I think it kind of ties for me, because I did use the Virtual Console on the Wii a lot. I got a lot of virtual console titles. I even utilized the Netflix that was actually on the Wii for a while there. Or even the YouTube app. Like for some reason, I think the PS3 and the 360 got a YouTube app later, and the only one that had it for a while was a Wii. And so I tried that out. I utilized that quite a bit. And the tie would actually be between that and PlayStation Network, because as soon as we got a PlayStation Network that wasn't hacker prone, I didn't even join in until after the whole hacking crisis where they had to come out and all apologize. Then I actually utilized that a lot. A lot of the games on my PS3 are, for lack of a better term, virtual console titles from like original PlayStation era or digital only titles. So I'd actually say it's probably a tie. I haven't utilized Gold as much as I probably should have on the 360. One, it's a different situation. But Alex, which one would you actually say got the most use out of you of those three systems? And worked the best?
Again, the PSN, the PS Network. I think that was the only time I bought any games for myself. So I was doing anything from the Wii Virtual Console. Either my sister had already purchased it because it was already a game I wanted to play, or occasionally maybe I'd have to go out and buy Wii points, because it wasn't really until the PS3 that I started utilizing my own personal finances for that. Because that's when I started getting a little more steady employment as a college student, so part-time, so I could pay and afford my own things.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing, too, that actually just got brought up in the chat that I also should bring up is because not only was this generation known for the online systems, but also the introduction of achievements. Now, the 360 is mostly known for that because they were the ones that came up with the system, and then eventually PlayStation came up with trophies. You also brought up World of Warcraft actually added achievements, the expansion after the 360 launched. We didn't really have one. I think there were a lot of Wii games that had internal achievements that you could get, but nothing that Nintendo was supporting. So yeah, it's also known for that. The online system, the achievements, all that fun stuff. Romney, which online system would you actually say got the most use out of you?
Well, that's a bit of a tricky thing, because keep in mind, my internet connection is not really conducive to gaming. And again, at the time, during that generation, we tried Xbox Live, but we couldn't really do much because we didn't have the money to pay for Gold, so we didn't really do a lot of online multiplayer.
Yeah.
So just by virtue of accessibility, at least for a little while until I wasn't able to do it because Nintendo, being Nintendo, didn't make the devices unable to be updated to work on a WPA2 connection, and that would have to be Nintendo's Wi-Fi service, because, like you, I did buy some Virtual Console titles, and pretty much that was all I really did, is that I occasionally bought Virtual Console titles and occasionally downloaded DLC for some of my DS games. But aside from that, I didn't really do a lot of online gaming. I think the only 2 times I tried any online matches wasn't even really at home. It was when I happened to be at places that had a Wi-Fi connection I could use. Like, at home, I would download DLC for Dragon Quest IX, but abroad, when I either would do it on the Front Runner, which for those not in Utah, that's kind of the train system, part of our public transit thing. The trains have Wi-Fi that you can use, and that was basically with both Advanced Wars, Days of Ruin, and Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, but even then, not very long because the latency was utter crap. And so I just did not have the patience, excuse me, to try playing online with such a crappy connection. So just by virtue of accessibility, it would be Nintendo's service, but even then, not by much.
Now, you said a lot of your time was spent on the DS. This actual question just barely came to my head. Did you have like a classic DS, or did you eventually get one of the later designs?
I got a DS Lite. It was a Christmas present from my father. Both me and my younger brother got them because my dad wasn't sure what to get. So he basically went into, I believe they were called Play and Trade at the time.
Yeah.
They basically went into a Play and Trade, which is like, hey, I don't know anything about these systems. Can you suggest something? And so my dad got 2 new DS Lites. Mine was white. My younger brother's was black. And he got us respective games. My younger brother sadly got stuck with Superman Returns and Justice League Heroes.
Ouch. Oh.
And the games I got, it was very much half and half. I got the Avatar: The Last Airbender DS game, which was meh. And then I got Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, which helped.
Yeah, you walked away. You walked away on that one. I'm just gonna say.
And even then, it wasn't like that at first, because even with Castlevania, I was kind of meh about it. But then as I started playing it more, and as I let my siblings play it a little bit more, I finally started to get into it when I got into the more of the mythology of Castlevania.
Did anybody in your household actually mess around with the DSi at all?
Nope. We pretty much... I mean, let's face it, my family, we very much liked our backwards compatibilities, mainly because it wasn't even like, oh, we're purists. It wasn't even so much, oh, we're purists. It's just more like, we like being able to play Game Boy games on screens we can see at night. We don't want to give that up.
No, I agree on that. But, like, I actually don't think I know a single person who actually went out and got a DSi. They either kept their craptastic clamshell, the original design, or they had a DS Lite. But then they basically waited until the 3DS before they even upgraded.
Yep.
So
that's kind of what I did. And oddly enough, it was because of Fire Emblem that we kept our DS Lites. I was the only one who kept his at the end of the whole thing, because my younger brother's broke. He didn't want to deal with it. My older brother got one of his own, but after a while, he didn't want to deal with it. I was the only person crazy enough to keep sending mine into Nintendo whenever it needed to be repaired. So I basically kept cycling the warranty forever and ever and ever, basically like, oh yeah, I'll send it in for free because it's still under warranty. And they kept renewing the warranty. And so mine's the only one still standing in the household. And it was because we liked playing Game Boy Advance games like Fire Emblem, both Fire Emblem 7 and Sacred Stones, as well as stuff like Golden Sun, and a lot of those other games, mainly because, well, we don't have to find a nice, well-lit area of the house to play the games. We have the backlit screens and not the crappy kind you get from the SP.
Yeah, that was kind of my deal, too, is like, when I saw the original design, and I think by the time I actually bought a DS, the early concepts for either the DSi or the DS Lite were coming out, and the original concept designs actually didn't have a cartridge slot. So I think it might have been the DSi. No, I think even the early blueprints for DSi or DS Lite didn't have them either. And then eventually they later added it. So at that point, I stuck with mine because 80% of my game time was either, like, handheld-wise, it was either in the Phoenix Wright games or it was on the various GBA games that I owned. So at that point, like, getting rid of that, I still have my clunker old DS, and it's just because I can play my GBA games on it. So yeah, so with that being the discussion on that, I would love to hear from you guys in the comments also of like all of your memories with 7th generation, with PS3, 360. I'm sure we could have our very own console war right here, and please let's not do that. But I think we've pretty much talked this into the ground. We're gonna miss the PS3, but well, things have to move on eventually. So with that, let's go ahead and get things started. Well, and here's the thing. If you have to upgrade to PS4, there's so many PS3 games that have been remade into definitive editions, so it's not really like you left it all.
Well, there are some games that are still locked to the console.
Sure.
Mainly, yeah, like, I mean, unless they decide to upload Metal Gear Solid 4 to PSN. Yeah.
So the next one that we need to get into, and actually I do think that they're going to do something like that. I think Konami was going to do a 4 and 5 collection or something like that. But the next thing we need to get into has been not just the discussion for this week. It's been for the last couple of weeks, which is bad news on the Square Enix front. So we've already gotten some bad news from the financial meeting that they actually had, and sorry, Kingdom Hearts fans, but it looks like you're probably not going to get anything for the next 2 to 3 years, if that.
Make it 5.
Yeah,
5 or 6.
I'm really kind of aiming at like 5. That's usually the Square Enix motif. But unfortunately, you're not going to get anything like that. And you thought it was bad for Kingdom Hearts 3. The Final Fantasy VII Remake is having some tough times too. And that is specifically that, unfortunately, they've lost quite a bit of staff for Final Fantasy VII Remake, and now they're having to re-recruit. But on top of that, we found out this week that their deal with CyberConnect 2, who was helping them get get that game done is now they're I don't want to say terminating their contract, but they're not working with CyberConnect 2 anymore. They've decided to do the Final Fantasy VII Remake internally. Now, I'm not saying that immediately means bad news, because I've seen some games in the past where that happened, and it was just that they didn't trust the other company, and so they wanted to do it all internally. Okay, that's fine. But usually in this era, if they're doing that, it's not good news. Either they had disagreements with the company or things have fallen way too behind. But now we unfortunately have the issue of the Final Fantasy VII Remake also getting the delay that Kingdom Hearts 3 is, but also having a bunch of issues that look like, dare I say, the 7 Remake's in worse shape than Kingdom Hearts 3 right now. I mean, of course, you guys can step in and tell me otherwise, but I mean, they're urgently trying to hire back staff, and on top of that, they have lost CyberConnect 2. So at that point, they're going to develop it internally, which, guys, adds to the overall time that this game is going to come out. I mean, I've got a good solution. How about we just drop the 7 Remake altogether? But I'd be smoking something. So let's go ahead and open things up to the panel. Alex, what are your thoughts on the Final Fantasy VII Remake troubles?
Sounds like, unfortunately, development hell is setting in. So I don't know what to say more other than sorry, Square fans. Sorry, fans. It must really suck, unfortunately. I feel bad for you guys. CyberConnect 2 dropping out. I'm not terribly surprised by this. I mean, whether it was strife between them or CyberConnect pulled out because they already have two games in development on their own front, and they just needed more staff and more time to themselves. Mm-hmm. That I guess that remains to be seen. We'll have to, I guess, find out in the near future whenever this gets finished, if ever gets finished.
Yep.
I mean, good grief, didn't the last Final Fantasy game take 10 years to get made? Essentially going through several revisions.
The reason it took so long was because it originally started as something else. Then Nomura got fickle and decided, no, this can't be, because originally it was Final Fantasy versus 13. So this was going to come out like right alongside 13, and they were going to be two unique experiences. And then Nomura got.
It was part of fickle. The whole.
Yeah, it was part of the Fabula Nove Crystallis 3 games that were going to come out all in homage to 13. And instead what happened was we got 2 sequels.
We got 2 sequels to 13, and then we got Type 0. Yes. And then, because of how long this one was taking, because Nomura was only working on Versus 13 and trying to do Kingdom Hearts 3 at the same time, and that's why things were taking so long. Plus, with the issues that people brought up regarding 13 itself, Square kind of went into panic mode thinking, okay, maybe let's try fleshing out and finishing the story of 13 with these 2 sequels, rather than trying to do this overambitious project, because they realized that there was no way 13 was going to be the next 7, which is what they were hoping it would be. Thus, the whole idea of the Nova Crystallis, much like how you have the Final Fantasy VII overarching franchise. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that's kind of for the best, because Type 0 is kind of boring. I've tried playing it. I just can't get through it because the world, there's just too much you have to read for, and not like, oh, I'm a lazy gamer. It's more like, it's just, there's too much you have to read.
Also pointing out to me, apparently Revenant Wings was also part of Fabula Nove Crystallis, but that was tied to 12. Because you actually played as Vaughn in it. So I don't know how that one fits in, but okay.
Well, yeah, and point being, that's kind of where it all started. With 15, Nomura was basically being stretched thin, because in addition to working on Kingdom Hearts 3 and on, because like Kingdom Hearts 3, Birth by Sleep, The World Ends With You, all these other projects that Square was having him work on, he was being stretched way too thin, which was why Versus 13 took so long. And then when they finally got it, when he was finally able to work on it again, well, we basically jumped console generations, and they figured, you know what, let's just make it as a separate standalone title.
Well, because in the time that actually happened, this is why I want to say that, like, yes, you're right, Romney. He got stretched way too thin, but he also got fickle in a lot of the decisions that he was making, because not only was he developing all of these other games, he was consulting on numerous others. Because I do know that he was listed as a consultant for all of the additional Kingdom Hearts games that came out in between 2 and 3. So he was consulting on them. Plus, he was I do know that he was brought on as a consultant for things like World of Final Fantasy. So I mean, we're talking a guy who's like literally, I mean, I hate to go for the Bilbo quote, but he was butter scraped over too much bread. He was, man. And so unfortunately it's like Square Enix kind of walked into this, and then they hand him the 7 remake. And unfortunately, this is where I think the fickleness came into mind, because instead of just remaking the game, that's when he decided, oh no, I'm going to change this, and this. And now it's actually gotten to a point where at least all of the friends that, minus the panel, obviously, but the friends that I talked to that wanted the 7 remake now no longer want it, because it's not the game they're expecting anymore.
Yeah. And to be fair, some of the changes were put out by Square because and I know the logic some of the people working on it have explained is that there's a lot of story and continuity things that later games like Crisis Core and some of the other like spin-offs have raised that they need to address. I mean, especially with Dirge of Cerberus and wherever the heck the Sviets came from. And so it was very...
Yeah, so the live chat's actually also bringing up, like, too bad they didn't do a sequel along the lines of Advent Children. They did. They literally did a suite of games, and that's another thing that added into Nomura's workload, is that he got this, since 7 was part of that development, he got to pick that stuff, and therefore he became, I don't think he was an official director of it, but like Crisis Core he consulted on. Dirge of Cerberus, I know he consulted on.
Yeah, because there was Crisis Core, Dirge of Cerberus, then you also had the cell phone
Advent
games
Children
before.
is part of it, but it's not a game.
Yeah, Advent Children was the movie. You then had Before Crisis, which was the mobile game, which he did the character designs for.
Yep.
And a couple of other things, like there were manga tie-ins, audio CD tie-ins. Basically, Square was milking this cow as much as they could until blood came out.
Before Crisis, Last Order, Crisis Core, Dirge of Cerberus, Advent Children. There's one in there missing. I can't remember it, but like, yeah, you had Before Crisis, a mobile phone game, Last Order, an anime, or an OVA, for lack of a better term. Advent Children, an official movie. Dirge of Cerberus, a sequel game, but more like distant sequel. And then Crisis Core, which was a midquel.
Midquel slash prequel, since it takes place before 7, technically.
Yes. So at that point, it's like, and again, Nomura is doing jobs on most of the stuff, if not consulting, plus 15, plus Kingdom Hearts 3, plus all of the other stuff. Guys, he had too much on his plate. Can we all agree on that?
Mm-hmm.
If this was Blizzard, he was Chris Metzen.
Sounds like if Square wants these games to get into proper development cycles, because we don't know where they're sitting at, but if Square really wants to get these games in a manageable amount of time, I think they're going to need to start doing some structure changes in their creative teams, and probably hire somebody else to oversee one or the other project.
I was actually going to say they need to promote somebody, because the bottom line, like, I know that they actually do have a couple of people from the Final Fantasy team who are working on other projects. Yoshinori Kitase comes to mind. Like, he's been responsible for a couple of the projects that have come out since then, but Nomura has too much. No wonder things look like 7, because, well, he wasn't the director of it, but a lot of the design actually came from him.
Yeah,
so,
and here's kind of the reason why I think why they stretched him so thin. Because keep in mind, most of the original people behind Final Fantasy have since left the company. Hironobu Sakaguchi.
he wasn't part of the company, but he worked for them.
Yeah, he worked for them, and there's also like a couple of others. And so basically the only people they have of like the Holy Six are basically Kitase and Nomura. And Nomura is kind of being stretched thin because he's kind of the last of, hey, you worked with Sakaguchi, which means some of his magic must have rubbed off on you, right?
Well, yeah, like he was the apprentice under Sakaguchi, so a lot of people assume that thus the magic has rubbed off on him and he's going to be able to put out, gold after gold after gold. And I'm not saying that, I don't want people to take what I'm saying as Nomura has sucked the second that he walked in there, because, guys, he hasn't. He actually has some really good games under his belt. Kingdom Hearts is one of them, and I love it. And I would actually dare say some of his work on later Final Fantasy titles has been great. I actually, unlike most people on the internet, am a fan of 13. I like that one, even though he didn't direct. He was more of a consultant on that one. I'm liking 15 so far. I'm not saying that the guy sucks as a developer. It's just, unfortunately, when you have talent like that, you cannot move them to 20 to 30 different projects, even though some of them are minor, without having some strain.
Yep. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you make the different branch offices for. That's why there are people who are kind of divided in regards to Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance, because unlike the main series, which were worked in Square's main office, those games were developed at Square's Osaka office. And so it's kind of like, this is the kind of thing you set up branch offices for, is for these smaller titles.
So our chat is like saying it's like Metal Gear, but at least they took time with their sequels. Yeah, comparing Tetsuya Nomura to Hideo Kojima at this point, I think that's apples and raisins, because Kojima actually took breaks in between, and actually he like hinted retirement after every single Metal Gear game. So at that point, it's like, oh, he came back, great, and now it's Nomura didn't have the same situation. He bounced from game to game to game. In fact, the last update that I saw from Nomura was that after 15 was completed, he was going to finish up his overall duties for the 7 remake. Then he would become kind of an overseer for it, and he could go solely work on Kingdom Hearts 3. Now, all of this news on the 7 remake tells me that's not going to be the case. The company's going to make him come back and work on it more dedicatedly than he can on Kingdom Hearts 3, which means, Kingdom Hearts fans, a delay. So I'm going to propose something that nobody's going to agree with, but technically on the inside you do. Drop the 7 remake. Let's go and take the 7 remake team, move them to Kingdom Hearts 3, and at least you're going to get a good game out of it.
Well, debatably. Keep in mind, at least with the 7 remake, the story will be somewhat coherent, and you don't have to do a bunch of homework to understand it. Whereas Kingdom Hearts, a friend of mine put it best, where Kingdom Hearts is basically the Twin Peaks of the Final Fantasy world, where unless you've been following it from the beginning, nothing makes sense anymore.
Let me put it this way. In one game versus 7, World of Final Fantasy makes more sense than Kingdom Hearts. And that's just because it's a spoof, it's a fan game. That's what it is. That's what it's always been attention to be. And Kingdom Hearts is just, it's convoluted. And part of that is it's lovingly because of what Nomura has done with it.
Yeah, but even that, it's gone to the point where it's basically reads like bad fan fiction now. I mean, especially the ending of Dream Drop Distance. I mean, keep in mind, I liked the game. I liked Riku's arc.
Yeah.
But seriously, bringing Axel back and, now he can wield a Keyblade. I'm just like,
oh, I'm sorry, Lee. Because I can already feel my wife, like her eyes burning into my head and burning straight at you, my friend. And that's just because you didn't call him Lee. So.
That was intentional, because, I mean, it'd be one thing if they at least changed the model to acknowledge that person. They literally have him wearing the Organization 13 jacket. It makes no sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. So, but the reason I'm going to say that, and chat, you know what? I want to hear you guys' opinions on this, because when the 7 remake, I'm not talking the tech demo, I'm talking when it officially got announced at E3, and I was the one who was having the conniption fit going, there's no way that this could possibly be better. Everybody was excited. And then the ideas started streaming through. This game will be episodic. The first episode will be Midgar. This will not have the classic systems that you're used to that are like JRPGs. This will mostly mirror either the Kingdom Hearts 3 engine or the Crisis Core engine, which are very similar. This game will not have limit breaks. Instead, there will be more Kingdom Heart-based limit break-esque kind of things where it's just more along the lines of QuickTime events. Everything that has come out as an announcement to the 7 remake, every friend of mine that has been excited for this has gone, oh. And now they don't want it anymore. So at that point, it's like, okay, let's cut this off right here. I'm pretty sure that there is still a demand and people still want it. But I know a lot of people are not happy with these changes. So let's cut our losses, put this thing in development hell. Let's go finish Kingdom Hearts 3 for the Kingdom Hearts fans who have been waiting probably about as long as the 7 people. But here's the thing, 7 guys, you have sequels in between. So at that point, let's just wait.
Yeah, but to kind of play devil's advocate for Square for a moment, here's where that idea may not work. Because Final Fantasy is an established brand that always has something new being added to it.
Sure.
Whereas Kingdom Hearts has not had a game, like a main series game, for more than 10 years. I mean, they literally celebrated like the 10th anniversary a couple of years ago, but there's been no main series game. It's all spin-offs. And
No,
without...
What was the anniversary we celebrated this year, where they actually put Sora in the pose? Because it was like the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy VII, and it was like the 20th anniversary for Kingdom Hearts, I think. And they put Sora in the cloud pose.
Yeah. Point being, the Kingdom Hearts as a brand doesn't have that type of established exposure that Final Fantasy VII has, or even the Final Fantasy franchise as a whole. Meaning that there's no guarantee, especially given how long it's been, given that most of the people who would have bought Kingdom Hearts 3 are now adults that, have jobs and have bills they have to pay and are less likely to actually go out and buy the game. From Square's perspective, it wouldn't be financially feasible for them to drop the 7 remake to work on Kingdom Hearts. Maybe if it was drop the 7 remake and put efforts towards the next main numbered Final Fantasy, then it would make a little more sense because Final Fantasy is established. But dropping everything for an obscure franchise that hasn't had a new release in over a decade, it's not the smartest move.
But before I get the hate mail, because Kingdom Hearts fans are adamant, there has been releases, but what I believe Romney is actually meaning on that is we're talking mainstay console releases. Everything after that point has been handheld. So Recoded, 358 over 2 days, Birth by Sleep, and I'm not saying that they're bad games. Birth by Sleep is like my favorite Kingdom Hearts title, but they were handhelds first, which means a lot of like console owners didn't even know they existed until the remakes happened. And they went, oh wait, there's been like 4 Kingdom Hearts games since then. Mm-hmm. One of them, sorry, cough drop because I don't want to cough on the mic. One of them actually takes ideas from another Nomura game, The World Ends With You, and actually puts it in as a legit world to not only say like Disney worlds will be utilized, but maybe other worlds as well. Kind of hinting to Final Fantasy fans, you might actually get your Final Fantasy worlds like you've been craving.
I kind of doubt that.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you right there, Romney, because I don't think so either. But a lot of people took the World Ends With You world, which is technically just a world within Kingdom Hearts.
Well, yeah, it's just Traverse Town, but with the World Ends With You cast.
But with the characters,
yeah, with the characters, and even then, the characters themselves, not the greatest interpretation, at least in the case of Neku, in my opinion.
Neku's the girl, right? Or no,
Neku's the main character.
Neku's the main character. I was actually going to say that girl got myrtleized when she got translated to 3D.
Are you meaning Shiki or Rhyme?
Shiki, I think. Neku's partner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's Shiki.
Because they tried to keep her original design as much as possible, and the 3D model just makes her look like she's a stick figure.
Well, that and just the characters.
Yeah.
The thing is, I can understand some characters just wouldn't translate that well story-wise. So, like Neku being antisocial, you need him to team up with Sora, but again, that's just splitting hairs here because, well, they did the same thing to the other Final Fantasy characters, like, Leon, because that's always been his name, right?
I can feel those eyes on the back of my head. It's Squall. All right, I'm good now. And the chat has also gotten back, and I kind of agree with you there. It's like people mostly wanted a shiny FF7 remake. They didn't want anything changed. They just basically wanted a 3D facelift. And unfortunately, that's not what you're getting. Because at that point, Nomura doesn't want to make that game. And I'm sorry, guys, that's the case. But maybe in that case, I agree with you, Romney, but here's the thing. I don't know if a Roman numeral title is in the cards. And I think it's just because with 14 out there and expansions being done for 14, I don't know if Square Enix knows what they want to do with Final Fantasy. I don't know if they want to do another Roman numeral title. Because I've heard a lot of talk saying, like, 15's a nice round number. Let's end it there. And so at that point, I don't know if we'd actually get 16 out of that, unless it was like, well, I don't even see it being an MMO.
Well, that and the other thing to consider is that they'll probably hold off on the next main Roman numeral number until the next console generation and have that be a title they develop for the new technology for the next generation.
Probably. That's why I was actually saying like maybe take the development time and move it over to Kingdom Hearts 3, because the 7 remake, it's kind of going down the dumpster as far as I am concerned anyway. And the only other franchise aside from, because here's the thing, guys, Deus Ex fans, Just Cause fans, Hitman fans, you guys aren't really being affected. You've had consistent games that have come out through these years. Even Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider has had, in fact, I think we're going to get the official announcement next week at E3 of Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is the 3rd game. So you guys haven't really been affected, but the main Square Enix licenses, I think, are going to be affected by this. And the way that they should is just get Kingdom Hearts 3 out there. That way, whoever's going to buy it is going to buy it, instead of having to go and buy remake after remake after remake to get themselves caught up.
Yep.
And in some cases, there are people who haven't. Like, I still have a friend who bought 1 and 2, will not buy the handhelds or the remakes. He's only interested in 3. So
yeah, I think at this point, I think Square's pretty much glad that they still have Dragon Quest to fall back on, since if Final Fantasy runs into the ground, that franchise will still keep them afloat.
I would actually say, does that mean the Dragon Quest would be the next thing with the target reticle on its face?
Well, who knows? I mean, I
No,
doubt
that'd be Star Ocean. Sorry, Aldo.
Yeah, but honestly, between the two, Star Ocean would be more likely to undergo any major lifts, because, let's face it, Yuji Horii is still at Square Enix. It's very much, hey, Square pretty much has the policy of, hey, Yuji, you know what you're doing. We're not going to mess with that. Just do what you want.
Yeah.
Japan's going to buy it no matter what you do. So Dragon Quest is probably safe because Square's just like, hey, this is the only major moneymaker. Let's not kill the goose.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this discussion up, because I think we've pretty much hit the nail on the head, guys. It sucks, but this thing's caught up in development hell, and it looks like Square Enix is probably going to pull it out, but it means you guys have to wait longer. And I know that they said in the financial statement that it's going to be 3. I kind of agree with Rami. I think the optimistic look at this is 5, maybe even 7 years. Because, where Alex kind of pointed out that they had a release kind of schedule that was happening, like it was going to be every Final Fantasy game came out like every 3-4 years. They have not held to that from about, I want to say I would actually even dare say PS2 era on. They've not held on to that schedule. So this is definitely a time for Square Enix to maybe take a look at what they're doing and reassess their priorities. So let's go ahead and get into the next story, which is our Nintendo talk, which unfortunately a lot of people would hope would be good news. It's not, because this literally broke yesterday. And Nintendo, or I'm trying to remember who actually got asked in the interview. Let me see if I can get his name. Yeah, so you remember that online system that we were supposed to get by fall this year and get more details on? You're not going to. It's actually been officially delayed until 2018. So for all those people who are waiting for things like, I don't know, Virtual Console, who are waiting to see what the other services entailed in this online service are going to be, you're going to be waiting until 2018. So they officially were interviewed on this, and the only piece of news, unfortunately, that we have for it, and this is via a post on Nintendo's website, the service will cost $3.99 a month for 1 month membership, $7.99 for 3 months, and we're talking per month, and then the 12th month will be $19.99 US. The service will include access to a compilation of classic game selections with added online play, including games like Super Mario Bros. 3, Balloon Fight, and Dr. Mario. But that obviously got people asking questions of like, okay, you're only mentioning NES games. Are you going to support SNES, N64, GameCube, all that stuff that you've already shown support for in your previous systems? We didn't really get an answer. In fact, the interview goes a little bit deeper. I'm actually going to go over some of the details there. Will Nintendo announce new details about its new online service at E3 2017? No. We will announce things later this year. Does the compilation of classic games include Super Nintendo and N64 games? At launch, the classic game library will include NES games. Super NES continues to be under consideration, but we have nothing further to announce at this time. So basically, anything past NES, they have no thoughts on, at least that they want to share. Will there be a test version of the chat app launching this summer, including an appointment feature? They're starting this summer, any Nintendo Switch owner with a Nintendo account and a supported smart device will be able to use a version of the smart device app with limited functionality. We have nothing further to announce at this time. And a lot of this is kind of continued in the interview. When asked about Virtual Console, we have nothing to announce. Classic game compilation titles keep as long as you're subscribed to Nintendo Online. Do you lose access to the games if you unsubscribe? The Nintendo Switch Online collection of classic games is available only to users with an active subscription. So we have details here and there, but not a lot of the stuff that we wanted to know. Like, for example, I wanted to know on Virtual Console how that's going to work, especially since I just barely saw a bunch of Neo Geo games enter into the Switch's eShop. And unfortunately, you're going to be waiting on that, probably till later this year. So, like I said, not good news. Alex, your thoughts on the delay of announcing their online service?
It's ridiculous at this point. Nintendo, why are you dragging your feet on this? Why are you launching this kind?
This will be yet another
Nintendo,
year where PSN and Xbox Live will exist, and yours won't.
Yes. You're I know Nintendo can be slow and stubborn to adapt with the times, fair enough, but I'm not expecting them to suddenly change all their ways at once here. But come on, Nintendo, you are in a world where you're competing against the PSN, against the Xbox Live services. You're competing against emulators and Retrons and other services where it's super easy to get classic Nintendo games for little fuss, but you're the ones dragging your feet on this. When you're launching this brand new product, you're trying to recoup the failures from your last project, from your last generation of console, and you're still dragging your feet. You're kind of asking to get a savage beating, and you're getting what you deserve.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, unfortunately, this is going to be yet another year where PSN exists and the Nintendo service doesn't. This doesn't necessarily affect Nintendo fans because they could probably wait, especially like the hardcore ones. They probably have a Wii U with some Virtual Console titles. They can play those in the meantime. But for those who just barely came back for a Switch and wanted these announcements, this sucks for them because this is probably the one thing that they cared about. Especially with games like Splatoon on the way, with ARMS on the way, all expected to do online multiplayer. They want to know if they're actually going to have to pay to get these multiplayer functions working. Which, guys, the sad reality is you probably are. And these are going to be the numbers that you have to pay. So I will say that it's not horrible, but it's about the 1999 numbers is about where things like PSN are. And so I guess
you want me to pay
works.
$20.
I just don't like that it's $20 for 12 months.
Yeah, $20. You want me to start paying $20 a year? Then you're gonna have to give me something more. I need more substance for me.
Yeah,
for me to throw out more money.
But even
when
I
can already throw
months,
that money towards other services and get more mileage for my money.
Yeah, but even for 6 months, this isn't enough. That's the thing. Like the $20 is for 12 months, so a full year. My bad. I was thinking 6 months for some weird reason. But yeah, like a full year, $20. That's reasonable. But you better have like a buttload of packaging along with that. And unfortunately, right now, what you have, I mean, I love you, Nintendo, but you don't have a whole lot. Especially with me, like the biggest feature that I'm concerned about is Virtual Console. I want retro games. I'm probably going to have to buy them again. I understand that concept, but, well, I probably won't buy the games that I have on my Wii and I have on my Wii U, but I am going to be interested in what other games are going to show up on that Virtual Console. And unfortunately, I'm not getting that answer until later this year, which means also that the Nintendo Direct that we're going to have won't even breach this at all. And we had already kind of given our speculation that was going to be one of the things they get into. We now know, nope, that's not happening. Romney, your thoughts on the announcement?
Honestly, I'd be lying if I didn't if I said that I wasn't experiencing just a little bit of schadenfreude at the expense of all the people who bought the Switch. Again, keep in mind, people, disgruntled Wii U owner who bought the bundle towards the end of its lifespan. So, and
He understands the
looking,
pain.
yeah. So looking at this, I'm just not surprised. Nintendo's made a lot of really stupid decisions lately. That, I mean, the pricing somewhat reasonable, but again, there's just not enough there to justify even the $4 a month to just try it for 1 month. There's just not enough there. Not enough in regards to Virtual Console, not enough features that other services like Xbox Live and PlayStation Network aren't already doing and in spades. So, yeah. I mean, as someone who's still holding out for anything to actually get me to buy the Switch, this isn't it.
I mean, I'll be honest. I bought games online via Switch. But here's the thing. I've kept things limited to, oh yeah, this would feel really great as a Switch game. The rest of the time when I'm buying indie titles, I literally look for PS4 or Xbox One because I know that those services are there, that there won't be any problems with it. I will admit that, I can't remember if it was Snake Pass or... No, it was Blaster Master Zero. I was literally going to get the video out, I think, that day. I was going to get that recorded, and I had to wait until the evening. Great. Keep in mind, PSN and Xbox One, they're having their stuff come out like at midnight or at very latest like 8 a.m. for me. And this one I had to wait until like 6 or 7 p.m. So at that point I was beat and decided to hold off on that. But this was a game I was looking forward to. I wanted to actually play. And I'm going to be honest, I think Nintendo dropped the ball on that one. And part of that is because they don't have this online system in place to be able to kind of automate the process. And that's hurting them right now. But unfortunately, they're not going to address the issue. So I guess the only good news that we got out of it is for Alex, and that is that Sonic Mania is coming out on August 15th. But you're not
already going multi-plat anyway. So because it's like I can already get that on PC.
The other Switch announcement that I got was the I actually didn't know this existed, and thankfully it's paid off, was the Indivisible RPG that's also coming to the Switch. They just announced that they're coming to Switch. It's from the creators of Skullgirls, and so it's coming to Switch, and half the stuff that's been announced for that after the Indiegogo campaign was paid for is more amazing than this announcement. I mean, I can already tell you, Alex, Shantae's in the game. In this new game from Skullgirls creators. That's more exciting than online system delayed for up to 6 months.
Do you mean the character or the actress?
No, the character. The character will be in this new game. Along with Shovel Knight and a dozen other indie game icons. So that's more exciting than the Nintendo announcement, unfortunately, that we had to give tonight. So with that, final thoughts before we move into the next portion, which will be thankfully much more optimistic.
Well, to a point, except for the second half of that agenda.
Yes, but at least the next story is more optimistic. So that's actually going to go ahead and wrap up the tech agenda for tonight, and now we're going to get into the entertainment portion of the evening with an awesome announcement that actually Romney brought it to our attention on the Geek News feed, and listeners brought the IGN story to me. But Steven Spielberg has come out and announced that Animaniacs is going to be coming back. So for those who remember Animaniacs, I'm probably the old fart that does. But back in the day when Fox actually had Steven Spielberg doing cartoons, not really, but like
it was Warner Brothers, not Fox.
Yeah, well, it was Warner Brothers, yes.
Well, it was Warner Brothers, but sometimes some Fox Kids affiliates would air it in other states.
Yeah, because remember, we didn't have Kids WB right off the bat, so Animaniacs would actually go to like Fox. So
I'm pretty sure I never remembered it on Fox. I only ever remember it on Kids.
Yeah, because I know in Utah it was on Kids WB, but I know there were in other states where it was on Fox Kids because, well, Kids blocks and syndication. It's a very, very weird thing.
We didn't have Kids WB right off the bat. It actually was a cable channel that was not as recognized. We got that, I think, when I was like 12. when we first got access to Kids WB and all of the stuff that was available to it. Up until that point, though, Tiny Toon Adventures, Animaniacs, all that stuff would go to Fox. That's why a lot of the jokes in Animaniacs are about the Fox censors, because the Fox censors were the ones that they were working against. So, like, if you remember the whole Yakko, I'll conjugate with you. Yeah, I could, but the Fox censors won't allow it. So, there you go, everybody. Yes, Animaniacs was a smart cartoon back in the day. Thank you, chat. So Animaniacs might be making a return, probably. We don't necessarily know where, but the guess is, since Netflix owns the streaming options right now to Animaniacs, it would go there. And Steven Spielberg is backing it. I don't think he's actually going to take charge on it. He's going to bring back a lot of the original directors, producers, all that stuff for Animaniacs to reboot it on Netflix.
Yeah, looking at it, it's specifically Spielberg's company, Amblin Entertainment.
Yes,
their TV branch that is the company behind this new reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Reboot / continuation, we don't really know because the announcement is that fresh. All we know is that Spielberg says, hey, we're bringing this back, but that is literally all the information. Yes,
so a remake might actually be happening. That's amazing. Because I used to love Tiny Toon Adventures, Animaniacs back in the day. It's probably like, that's the humor that I appreciate, is the smart humor that actually, like, a lot of people don't realize how smart the humor was back in the day. The Tiny Toons and Animaniacs was actually hitting until much, much, much later. I would actually say, like, a lot of people would say the smart humor was probably The Simpsons. And no, you were actually getting that hours before. And even today, I still appreciate, like, a good old Nostalgia Critic video where he goes into a lot of the jokes that a lot of people didn't necessarily get when they were kids. But that was also in there. So, Alex, are you excited for the return of Animaniacs, or are you just like, eh?
I guess I'm just kind of eh. I mean, yeah, I watched the show growing up. I can't say I was super in love with it or I committed to watching it every day. There are episodes that I remember fondly. You know, I still remember the Baloney and Kids, which was a spoof of Barney and Friends. That was always my favorite of all their bits, of all their sketches that they ever did, was the Baloney and Kids, because I still remember that one fondly. But, you know,
Yes.
I don't know. It could be good, but it could also just be utter crap. It's hard to say when you bring back a show from over 20 years ago.
Yeah, you're right. There's that risk, but I think they'll be able to do it.
Like, I'm kind of with Alex on this one in terms of it could either be good and enjoyable, or you could run into the Bill Nye Saves the World issue, where in a bid to recapture that nostalgia, it just ends up going downhill. Now, knowing Spielberg, knowing the people he likes to work with, chances of that are pretty slim, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. It just would depend on how they're gearing this, because we don't even know if it's going to be on Netflix. For all we know, this could be picked up for, say, Nickelodeon or Disney XD, for example.
Yeah, we don't know necessarily where it's going. We're only guessing the Netflix part because that's where Netflix is being hosted, or where Animaniacs is being hosted.
Yeah, but for all we know, it could even end up on Cartoon Network, which may impose its own wishes. Case in point, Powerpuff Girls 2016. So it's definitely one of those. I'm cautiously optimistic, given that Spielberg does at least want to make sure that he's putting out good stuff, or at least stuff that has his name attached to it. He wants to make sure at least it gets up to a certain level of quality, but that's not always a guarantee.
Well, that and the fact that he's trying to track down original writers, producers, all that stuff. So he's trying to keep the staff as consistent as he can possibly leave it, and then at that point bring in new blood and see what they can actually add to the equation. That's optimistic to me, because if this was Cartoon Network, they'd be hiring on dude who made Adventure Time famous, dude who made, all of these series that I don't necessarily want. Guys, I'm sorry, but they're not smart humor as far as I'm concerned.
Honestly,
a lot of it is just SpongeBob-esque gags. And so at that point, they bring on the gag humor instead of the smart humor that was originally there.
Yeah. Honestly, if Penn Ward was kept on a really short leash, I could see him doing a good job, but Penn Ward is a lot like Frank Miller and Alan Moore. You need to put them in a very strong box in order for them to produce good work. I mean,
Yep.
Some of the stories that Alan Moore and Frank Miller wrote for the DC Universe, when DC had those limitations, they turned out some good work. But then when they don't have those limitations, you end up with stuff like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Black Dossier, or, well, the Dark Knight Returns, as well as All-Star Batman and Robin. Let's just say, I mean, I wouldn't be against Penn Ward being brought on as a writer, but you would need to set clear rules of, here's what you can do, here's what you can't do, here is the style of the show. And unless, I can see it working, but Penn Ward would have to be really kept on a short leash if they want to still have it be like the Animaniacs.
But again, it just depends on who's in charge. If Steven Spielberg's in charge, then yeah, he's probably going to keep him in that box, because I do know that Steven Spielberg, while not completely involved with Animaniacs, he did keep a strict leash on that production. He wanted to make sure that a good image was still being given, despite the fact that they were breaking rules left and right. If this is Cartoon Network, I honestly don't believe that there will be a leash on him. Just go nuts.
And again, it goes either way. It really depends on how much leeway one would give the other, whether Spielberg would be given the leeway to do what he wants, or if Spielberg would be giving Cartoon Network the leeway that they want. It very much, because keep in mind, yes, Cartoon Network would probably not put them in much of a box, but when you're getting a brand like Steven Spielberg, that's not the kind of thing you can handle lightly. It's something that, like, oh, we got this Steven Spielberg produced show on our network. We kind of don't want to have it be bad, because then it'll give us a whole bunch of flack. Yeah. Especially, not only would it piss off the audience, they would piss off Steven Spielberg, which would be a very bad business move, because Steven Spielberg is still pretty powerful in the industry.
Yes, he is. So at that point, I think that's pretty much our final thoughts on that one, because I'm excited for it, and I will look forward to the newest episodes. But I agree with you, Romney. I think that there's a 50-50 thing here. It depends on who they bring back. It depends on the ambitions of said directors and things like that. But I'm at least optimistic, because Steven Spielberg is tracking down as many people who used to do this as possible. I will say this, though, if Animaniacs does come back, I don't want any separation between that and Pinky and the Brain. I want Pinky and the Brain back in the cast. I'm just saying.
Well, and again, that also raises the question of, would it be in the same format with the different segments, or would they try going in a different direction where
we don't know.
Because that's the other thing. It's only been announced. It is still very early in development. It's good that Spielberg wants to bring it back, but everyone who's starting to chat, hey, cartoons are saved. Hold your horses, people. We don't know yet.
No. I was actually going to piss off the chat. I'm officially not. Well, I was actually going to give crap about Bill Nye, because, well, unlike most people on this panel, I hated Bill Nye, never got behind his show, and didn't like the fact that my public education system shoved him down my throat. But that's me. I get it. You guys like it. Blah, blah, blah.
You also hate Sesame Street. See? I tell you, he's the bigger hipster than I am.
I don't hate Sesame Street that much. I hate later Sesame Street. I like earlier stuff.
Well, some of the later stuff's been okay. I've been rewatching episodes lately. Some of the more heavier episodes, like the one they did for Hurricane Katrina, was pretty good. And some of those episodes where they tried to kind of discuss...
I'd just like to say for the record that, with the HBO purchase, I am very disappointed that Joffrey never made the cast on one of those episodes.
Yeah. I've had to explain this to so many people. HBO has first-run rights to the series. That does not mean they're actually going to control. You're not going to see the Red Wedding on Sesame Street.
Calm down. I was only referencing a joke that I made when the partnership was announced. So,
yeah,
either that or you have Daenerys all of a sudden come out and go, "Well, my dragons! Oh wait, there they are."
Yeah, but point being, it to kind of get back on topic. The nostalgia gambit is pretty marketable when you look at stuff like how well Fuller House did, how well Voltron Legendary Defender did on Netflix. A lot of shows that are based on that nostalgia. But the key difference here, I can't speak in the case of Fuller House, but in the case of Voltron, you have that passion there. You have it where the people making it genuinely want to do a good job. And that's something that's easy to screw up. Again, case in point, Powerpuff Girls 2016.
Yeah, exactly. I would actually say, here's the thing. Netflix has had some bad news this week, too. They had Sense8, I think, got canceled. And even the the CEO of Netflix has said that he would like to see more stuff canceled on the premise that he would like to see his shows being competitive. And guys, I agree with him. I think that's actually a good thing to aspire for, because that means you're going to get good stuff regardless.
Yeah, especially since they've got to chase. Because, I mean, they're still trying to live down the whole 13 Reasons Why controversy as well.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some restructuring with how they approve shows.
So at that point, I have no problem with Animaniacs, Voltron, Legendary Defender, Fuller House. I think Gilmore Girls is officially getting a series now because the mini movie they did was successful. All of that stuff that's banking on nostalgia, they need to still be competitive, and that's accurate. It needs to happen that way. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the last story that we have tonight, which, again, kind of dips us into the K2SO territory. And sadly, no, he has not approved your Prozac today, everybody. Sorry. This comes out of Phoenix, specifically Phoenix Comic-Con. Gunman has been arrested and claims he is the Punisher and wanted to kill Jason David Frank. Okay, so the details that we have are kind of sparse, but we'll do as best we can. Let's see. I believe the guy's name is Matthew Sterling. He is a Valley resident, and he was arrested at Phoenix Comic-Con on Thursday, May 25th, with a cache of weapons. So allegedly, he actually was able to get the part that concerns me about this story. He got through the first screening at Phoenix Comic-Con. He got through the first screening of everybody looking at his stuff and going, oh, that doesn't look like cosplay. That looks like a legit gun. He got through the first wave, people.
Yep.
There was a second wave, thankfully, but he got through it.
Well, thing is that it wasn't even the second wave that caught him. Basically, to explain, he got past security. He avoided all of the peace bonding stations, and literally was taking a break, sitting down at a bench, texting a friend, basically stating that he was ready for a showdown with police officers, and was basically telling the plans to this friend, and it was this friend that he was texting that informed police of what he was going to try to do. That led to the altercation that led to his arrest. And yeah, this guy definitely unhinged.
And to bring people up to speed, like, he literally, like, through later interviews that we got via the Phoenix Police Department, he literally believes that he is the Marvel Punisher. He believes that he is the equivalent of the Vigilante, and he went to Phoenix Comic-Con to murder Jason David Frank for a supposed rivalry that they have been having over the many years. And the reason we know that is because he apparently offered numerous fantastical stories. We don't know all of them, but numerous fantastical stories to police officers. He even outright confessed to the police that he included tales of bad police officers whom he called, what was it?
Aphrodite officers.
Aphrodite officers who are kind faces in uniform, but are ultimately bad. And he actually did say to these officers, if they turned out to be these Aphrodite officers, he would gun them down.
Mm-hmm. The weapons that this guy had on hand, they included handguns, a shotgun, a knife, pepper spray, all while he was also decked out in body armor, and he was able to get past security. I'm actually looking at the official complete text of the probable cause statement that was submitted by the Phoenix Police Department. So basically, this whole incident occurred on May 25th at approximately 12:11 p.m. So this was just after noon. The Phoenix Police got a call from the Hawthorne Police Department regarding the person whose full name is Matthew Enrique Navarro Sterling, and basically that's where they got the tip, because he was messaging someone over Facebook stating he was going to shoot police officers. He was taking pictures of the cops that were on scene, and he basically said, hey, I've got all these weapons, I'm ready to rumble. And the friend he was messaging passed everything along. And
not only that, but the phone was also apprehended, and the phone was pretty damning too, because I mean, literally this is the part that I love about the story. He literally had a reminder set in his calendar on Thursday to, quote, kill JDF. Okay. Just why? If you're going to murder somebody, why would you even put that in your iPhone where it could get documented in 4 different places?
Well, keep in mind,
Because obviously
this is
he's
someone
not right in the head.
No, he's not.
Yes, he's not right in the head. He lives in an alternate reality that kind of plays by its own rules. And that's kind of, again, he thinks he's the Punisher. He thinks like, oh, I stabbed Jason David Frank 15 years ago, and so I'm going to come and finish the job. And
well, even better, like, so we have a little bit of the stories. Apparently, he had stabbed Jason David Frank 15 years prior, and he was going to Phoenix Comic-Con to, quote, finish the job. So in his mind, he's already had fights with the Green Ranger, and sadly, the Green Ranger lost in his mind. But, you know, I guess that would probably work. And here's the thing, too. Frank was not the only person that was a target. A number of other people were referenced as possible targets or people he wanted to kill. This guy was so let's take the whole Jason David Frank out of this issue. Like, I know he was an intended target. This guy was going to go to Phoenix Comic-Con and raise 7 kinds of hell.
mm-hmm.
That's what he was going to do. And so at that point, like, I'm still going to say the first screening process, what the hell was wrong with you guys? But thankfully the cops were able to apprehend it.
Okay, according to the article, he slipped past security, so I'm not sure they were. So he probably found a back door, an access point somewhere he can slide past any security checkpoints. I don't think that the guards just saw him and let him go.
This stuff before the con can even happen, Alex.
Yeah, but keep in mind, if someone is determined enough, they will find an exploit.
Okay, I'll give you that. But
it's an unfortunate thing, Adam, but we're talking about a very large venue where it is staffed mostly by volunteers, as someone who's been to cons before can tell you. It's a lot of volunteers. Even security tends to be volunteers, maybe some local police on hand. It's unfortunate, but this shit does happen. It's not, you're making it sound like security looked at his bag and said, "You're good," and go. That's not what happened here.
That's kind of what the story's doing, though. He slipped through security.
That's not what the story's doing. You're not reading. Yes, he slipped through security. That implies he found.
Alex, you and I are going to disagree on this, because the bottom line is that there is a screening process, and there's a screening process to approve your screening process. So the bottom line is that I get that he found a leak. I get that he found a chink in the armor. But the bottom line is there shouldn't have even been a chink in the armor. If you have only volunteers, you should have hired security on there. I know that the big Comic-Cons do that. So Phoenix Comic-Con isn't a big one that they actually hired on security?
Yes, they have security. Unfortunately, the dude found a way to get through it. It's not hard. Anywhere you can do this anywhere. Really, you can go to any stadium, any public event, and find this. Again, you're implying like that this security.
I'm
just
not implying.
saw him and let him
that's
go on
you.
by.
Okay, Alex, I love you dearly. You're putting words in my mouth, because the bottom line is, yes, I understand that crap like that happens. Otherwise, why would we have things like the Aurora killings and all that stuff? That happens. I get that, but the bottom line is that this guy was actually able to get through. That's a scary prospect.
Yeah,
this guy was going to go in and raise 7 kinds of hell. He had at least one intended target in mind. Although it does go on to say that he had a number more. So for all we know, like, the one vendor who screwed him that 1 year was probably going to get a face full of shotgun too. That's what I'm saying is, like, this is crap that happens at these cons. This is something that definitely needs to be looked into. And I get that they had security. They probably need more.
Well, this does
he's not the only crazy guy that goes to a con.
Well, this does actually go into some of the aftermath we've had from these events, where we've had Comic-Cons across the country revamping a lot of policies. There's even been some, and this has been a full-on debate, even on the social media pages for Salt Lake Comic-Con, because it was a resolution Salt Lake Comic-Con was considering adopting, which was basically outright banning any prop weapons. Now, granted, some cosplayers, especially when you're cosplaying a character that the weapon is a more defining characteristic than their costume, that can kind of hinder them a little bit. But
Cough, Cloud Strife costumes, cough.
Well, yeah, like, not just Cloud Strife. I mean, if you look at, say, the cast of Ruby, for example.
Yeah.
You could get away with some of the outfits a little bit, but without the giant scythe, it's kind of hard to tell Ruby Rose from other red-clad
Bleach cosplays would have this issue too. Yeah,
especially any kind of gun wielding character.
Yes, and so this has been having a bit of a negative effect. I know Salt Lake Comic Con's issued a statement that they're not going to be banning prop weapons, that they're going to try to find some other ways to beef up security. But even if you have the most beefed up security, it's the sad truth is, if someone is deranged and determined enough, even if you were to say have the army providing security for your comic convention, so maybe if Trump decided to have a comic convention at the White House, which I doubt he would, but then again,
he would personally need to invite the guy who dressed up like Sailor Moon. I want that guy on a panel.
Yeah, point being, unless the president were to host a Comic-Con within the White House with guests and all, even if you were to have armed soldiers providing security, again, there are people who are determined enough that would find a way through, that they would scope out and look for all those exploits. I mean, this guy probably thought in advance and kind of took a look at all the ways that people could enter the convention hall, probably looked at the map at where the security venues were going to be.
Yeah.
He probably
has to have done some homework.
Yes, and so and so it's unfortunate, but it's very much a case. There's no real one person to lay blame here. I'm sure a lot of the people were doing the jobs they set out to do. It's just that this very freaky guy managed to get through, even despite the best intentions. And luckily, this had a happier ending where he was caught, he was apprehended, there were no shots fired. Most they had to do was tase him because he was putting up a bit of a fight, but they got to him before he could do any damage. But it does raise those kinds of questions. What can conventions do to prevent that sort of thing? And even then, there's only so much you can do, so many corners you can check, so many things you can watch. It's scary, but there's only so much you can do. And I'm not saying, they'll find a way, so don't do anything. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying this was a freak occurrence that was perpetrated by a very, very deranged man.
No, it's one of those things where it was a good thing that like we weren't solely relying on con security. We had police officers on hand that actually did recognize the guy and did handle him. So at that, because I believe that he had, I need to double check the story, but I think he broadcast that he was going to do it too. So at that point, they knew their information. So if people are getting that impression for me that I'm blaming the con for this happening, no, I'm not. This is just one of those, I agree with Rami. This is one of those freak occurrences that could have ended horribly and thankfully didn't. But it's definitely something that now a lot of I would actually dare say I'm thankful that the bigger cons, because I remember a couple of years ago when we covered the whole inappropriateness with the cosplay happening to female cosplayers, that already is getting looked into, but this is something also that needs to get looked into as well. And not just to the big announcement cons, to all the stuff that we all go to. Like, I'm saying like this needs to be considered at even your local cons, just to make sure that people are safe. Yeah.
Although I do just definitely have to say, and although Jason David Frank has made statements saying, hey, this isn't going to stop me from showing up at conventions, he's definitely got to have been shaken by this experience, because when you're in a situation where you find out that someone got into a place you thought was secure with the intent to do you harm, even if they were caught, that's a scary prospect. I mean, a lot of people think, oh yeah, but Jason David Frank is a skilled martial artist. Yeah, but the guy was carrying projectile weaponry, and no matter how fast your reflexes are, a gun, let alone a shotgun, can still, you're not going to be able to do much against that. And so I'm pretty sure he's...
And on top of that, there's only so much protection that can be offered to Jason David Frank at those things. Like he can get green rooms, because I believe that there is like back rooms where some people can mingle before they go to their panels, before they go out to the vendors and things like that. So you have that level of protection. But the second that Jason David Frank stepped out to a panel, he was open, and this guy could have taken his opportunity. I would hope that he would have failed, but I actually agree with you. I think the way that Frank handled this was probably the best that could have happened out of that, because, well, you're right. He is a martial artist, but martial arts don't stop guns.
No. Nope.
So at that point, the fact that he still demonstrated a degree of bravery afterwards, I'll applaud him for that.
Yeah. It just definitely has to be a scary prospect, and I'm sure he's handling it fairly well, but it's definitely scary. And I'm sure this is probably putting a lot of people who go to conventions as their job, basically, on notice to keep an eye out for this sort of thing. And so, luckily, again, it ended happily. it's going to probably give all the convention planners across the US and beyond something to think about, especially in light of a lot of other recent events. And that's all we can really do is basically make sure we're closing any exploits and any loopholes. I mean, I know Salt Lake Comic Con in particular, when they have their Kids Con section, they are pretty good about making sure that skeevy kind of people aren't making their way there, mainly because I speak just from experience from where I had to go through, since the sword experience I did at FanX was in the same area, but still cordoned off. But it's still very much one of those cases where there is no definite, here's what to do to make sure this doesn't happen. It's just very much, we just all have to practice due diligence. And even if you're just a convention goer, it very much proves the old adage of, see something, say something. If you see someone suspicious at a convention, let security know. Be discreet, because if you just shout, that guy's got a weapon, you're gonna ignite it. Be discreet. If you see someone you think is suspicious, go up to security, say, hey, I think this guy's being suspicious. Keep it discreet so that way you don't trigger anything, because if someone's going to shoot up a place, adrenaline's already pumping. One thing can set them off, so that's why discretion is important. And I speak also from experience of having trained with people who've explained this to me many, many times in my martial arts classes. So yeah, I think as convention goers, as convention planners, we all just need to be a bit more vigilant and basically making sure that...
I would actually say, as an addition, look into what some of the other smaller cons are doing. I've been told a couple of stories like where a local con wouldn't allow any metal replicas of weapons. So at that point, everything you brought in either had to be plastic or foam, and you had to prove it. So like when you got screened, they had to actually feel the weapon to make sure that there were no metal parts for it. Which, look, cosplayers, I know that sucks for you because you want things to be as authentic as possible, but it's a risk that some people aren't willing to take, and unfortunately, those are the people that the con is trying to get brought in so that they'll come back next year.
Yep. And plus, the other thing, and to those cosplayers that are just like, oh, I want it authentic, there's a lot you can accomplish with a Nerf gun and knowing how to paint something. My older brother, he does that as a hobby, where he basically modifies and paints Nerf guns. Even if it's foam, if you know how to paint something right, you can work wonders.
Well, not only that, like in the Valley, we have so many like movie prop guys who have been able to find different ways to make things that look metal into like a very sturdy plastic. I still remember like one of the cons that I used to go to called Nertacular. One of the major guys that got advertised all the time was a movie prop guy. And he actually had a cosplay of Wolverine. So like X-Men Origins Wolverine kind of guy. So like wife beater, blue jeans. And he actually had claws that literally looked like they were probably like legit knives that he had glued onto his fingers. But no, they're like really durable plastic. So it's there's a lot to being able to, if you know what you're doing, being able to fulfill the illusion without having the dangerous weaponry kind of thing. So I'm sure a lot of people might be disappointed about what we're saying here, but there are some legit concerns. And it's definitely something that has to be looked into, but well, I mean, crazy is still crazy. There's no way you're going to stop this guy.
And I guess the really important thing is that we just have to be willing to watch out for each other. If we notice something suspicious, notify security if you can, and just basically all work together to make our con-going experiences just that much safer.
I will at least compliment one thing this guy had. He had cojones of steel. Just because of the whole Aphrodite officer thing. This was admitted to police officers, people. In an I mean, granted, it was on police officers' terms. But this guy admitted that if he so much as considered you that, he'd be on your butt. That takes resolve. I'll give him that. But man, he was batshit crazy.
Again, most crazy people don't really give a crap of if they. That's the thing. If someone is crazy, they don't care if you think they're crazy, because chances are, if you're calling them crazy, you're just the enemy trying to bring them down. So. Again, very much deranged, off in his own little world. And we've seen quite a few people like that. And no matter what we do, they're always going to slip through the cracks.
No, there's only so much that we can do before it's up to fate, roughly. It's up to that roll of the dice. And at that point, This could have ended horribly. It didn't, thankfully. Let's all just at least take the positive out of that. This could have ended horribly. It didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So final thoughts before we wrap things up for the night. I was going to get into some E3 stuff tonight, but we are actually, I thought we were going to be under time tonight. We're doing awesome. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up unless you have some additional thoughts on this one, Alex.
No, I just you guys have said it all. Just be vigilant, be cautious, be courteous, and as Romney says, see something, say something, and be discreet about it. I'm glad, it certainly is food for thought. I'm going to Anime Bonsai in October, right? And certainly, it's not just this year, but years, even last year. It's like you have to like start thinking about. Yeah. Okay, could this be a potential big target for somebody who wants to cause a lot of harm? But you can't let it get to you either. It's just go.
Well, the bottom line is
go,
that
but be vigilant.
Because there's a potential for a crazy person doesn't mean you should change your plans. Because the bottom line is
it's
you
just
can't count.
I mean, for lack of a better expression, if you live your life in fear, the terrorists win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's something that was said a lot in the wake of 9/11, but that's true. If you let one bad incident prevent you from living your life, the terrorists win.
Yep. And I have no problem saying this, and this is going to seem harsh, but I have no problem with this guy spending a night in jail. I know that there's already defenders for him on Twitter and other places that are immediately asking for he should be in some kind of an asylum. I'm sorry, I'm not one of them. This guy should be in a prison cell. Because of what he tried to do, but that's me. So, sorry, that's just the way it goes. You guys can let me know how horrible and hateful I am in the comments below. You guys will obviously do that. Let's go ahead and wrap things up before I get us even more in trouble. Does that sound like a good idea?
Let's finish up.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. And already, I'm also probably going to get the comments of like, you were so mean to Alex. Well, yeah, but trust me, if you listen to Draken Shadow, this gets returned. We love each other dearly, but this gets returned.
Well, to quote Mr. And to borrow a quote from Mr. Rogers, sometimes the people you love can make you the maddest.
Yes. I really wish that 16-hour marathon was still or a 16-day marathon was still going. Everybody needs to go watch some Mr. Rogers. What did you say, Alex?
I said it's true. It's absolutely true.
So let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. We thank you guys so much for joining us on this awesome journey tonight. And if people want to get a hold of us to give further insight, give their stories, all that fun stuff, how did they get a hold of you, Shadow Blazer?
Well, of course, find me on YouTube. Shadow Blizzard 3000 is my channel where I do anime content, reviews, lists, and variety stuff, as well as the occasional Let's Play here and there. And if you want to follow me on social networking and always get news and announcements of when I put up a new video, follow me on Twitter at AlexJShort.
All right, and Stephen Romney, how do people get a hold of you if they want to share their insight on this?
Well, you can always find me here on YouTube at youtube.com/StudioGhostUtah. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Romney'sReviews, no apostrophe. And I'm also on Twitter at RomneyReviews. And as for this week's Romney's recommendation, it's actually going to be a YouTube video. As some of you may know, I'm a fan of the YouTube channel Glove and Boots. And earlier this week, they released a video that I believe is somewhat relevant to, well, the discourse of today, titled Money, Politics, and Religion. And basically explaining why there is the rule of the 3 things you never talk about and why. They put up a hilarious video featuring the ever classic, no-nonsense New Yorker, Johnny T, explaining why you should never talk about money, politics, or religion, and the fact that rule should still apply to social media. And so that's this week's Romney's recommendation, is the video titled Money, Politics, and Religion by Glove and Boots.
See, we talked about money, we talked about politics. Some of us belong to the cults of either Square Enix or Nintendo, so I'm going to count that as religion. Oh, dang, we're screwed. All right. Well, before I get into the actual stuff, I'm going to go ahead and pimp another channel that actually both me and Alex work on, which is Draken Shadow. It's our Let's Play channel. Please go and check us out because we're actually trying to make the push to 100 subscribers and doing a milestone, which would be a Let's Play of you guys' choice, or if you want us to vlog movies or whatnot, please give our channel a visit. Check out all of the Let's Plays that we've done so far. Give us a like, give us a subscribe if you wouldn't mind doing so. We would greatly appreciate it. And also, people want to get a hold of me. The best two ways are on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Drac2326. And you can check out all the other content that I do, vlogs, reviews. Most of it's game content, but I do step into the realms of TV and other geek stuff occasionally, as well as podcasting. So you guys can check me out there, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Drac2326. It's actually in my little sub bar right there if you can read it. So, and that's also a really great way to get a hold of me, and I will try and get back to you as quick as I can. However, if you guys want to support the podcast directly, here's the best way to be able to do so, and we would encourage you do it. Go to geekyweek.podomatic.com and give us a like, because that's where our RSS feed is hosted, and it's also where you can get access to the iTunes page. So if you guys want to listen to us on your commute, you're more than welcome to do so. You can also follow us on you can also send us stories that you would like us to talk about, or just your overall opinion of the podcast, to our email, which is geekyweek@gmail.com. And then finally, if you want to give us the social media support, which we always do appreciate, you can you can look for Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions on Facebook and like the page. You'll get up-to-the-minute information when we're going live, the stuff we're going to be talking about, any updates on all of our panelists' respective channels, which doesn't just include Alex and Romney. We also do cover stuff from Aldo's channel, as well as Brinton's, and any other people who have also done some work on the podcast. Or you can also follow us on Twitter at GeekyNRO. And again, you'll get all of that information plus so much more. But that's going to go ahead and do it for us this evening. Thank you guys so much for watching. And of course, for me, for Alex, and for Romney, we'll see you guys next week as we discuss, literally on the eve before E3, we discuss our hopes, our fears, all of that stuff on the next episode of Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions.